Hello, I'm Angela Meiritz-Reid from Stamping Beauty in Christchurch, New Zealand. Today I'm going to create this card. This is for today's Be Inspired blog hop, and I've used the gorgeous set, the Darling Details and the coordinating dies. I'm going to start by creating the watercoloured images so that they have some time to dry. And I'm using the Fluid 100 watercolour paper. This comes in this handy size, and there are 10 sheets in the pack. And I often have little pieces left over, and I just pop them in this wee envelope, and then it gives me a chance to use those scraps for projects like this. So I'll bring in some more scrap paper just to protect my surface, and I do tend to get water and colour everywhere. So I want to start by stamping and heat embossing these floral images, and I've done those in gold, so I'll do that first. So I've got my embossing buddy, and I'll just run that over. That just stops extra powder sticking to the card. And using my Versamark, and I'll just bring in a foam mat that just gives a little bit of a softer base for these photopolymer stamps. So let's give that a good stamp up. I just need 3 of these. The Versamark ink is a little bit tackier than the other inks, and so you do have a few moments before you need to get the powder on. So I've got some gold embossing powder here. Let's cover those images. Oops. I've got the 3 images here to do that too. And the last one here. And then I'm just going to heat set that with my heat tool, so it won't be a moment while I do that. That is done, so you just want to give those a couple of moments before you die cut with them. And I might just do this now, and that'll start drying. So this is I'm going to use for the leaves. And quite often what I do is just on the back, just write the stamp ink colour. So it's Granny Apple Green, so I'll just pop that on the back. So if I have any left over, I'll just pop it in a little container, and then it's there if I need it for another project. So I'm just going to pick up some ink off here, just colour this piece of Fluid 100. Depending what sort of depth of colour, you can just keep on adding. I like to get a variegated look, so I like to add just patches of dark and with the light. That is done, so super quick and easy. I'll just set that aside. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to die cut these images now. Just one step done then for later. And then if they aren't totally dry, I can still pop them on the project without trying and having to wait to die cut them. Just need to do those 3. It's good too when you do die cutting after you've embossed. It easily sits around the edge because it's slightly raised with the embossing. And then this last one. I don't know about you, I tend to find that I go that way with my die cutting. Sorry, hope I'm not bumping the camera too much. Right, so we have those 3 die cut. And then, using Sweet Sorbet, I'm going to watercolour these images. What I've done them light and dark, and I've also added some splotches with just water, just to create a little bit of interest. I'll just do the same again, just pick up ink off here. I just want to get the ink down, and then where it's closer to that edge here, just add a bit of darkness. You can either do either way, doesn't really matter. Add the dark first and then add the light, or the other way around. It's just something to, you know, it's fun to play with and experiment with that colour. And if it does start to dry a little bit, you can add a little bit more colour just to blend that in. A bit more colour and a bit more water. Just doesn't take long. If you want to take out a bit of colour, which probably sounds odd, but you can just clean off your brush and then just bring it in and lift up, and it will take a bit of the colour out if you just want to get some lighter patches in there. But I'll also achieve that. I'll do some flick later when it's a little bit dry and get some water marks on it. So once you're happy with how it's looking, just move on to the next one. And I do tend to work quite quickly, and it will dry, of course, quicker if you don't use too much water. But you can also use your heat tool to dry it off if you want to get it to dry faster. And just by squeezing where it says push on these water painters, you can just add a bit of more water to the colour, just to lessen the intensity. And I'll just add that in there. Want to take some water off, or just the colour, just using some scrap does that. You don't have to all be exactly the same. So this one, that one I added the dark first. This one I'll totally colour in, just show you the difference. I'll add, totally colour the background. And so if you want things to blend in quickly using the moisture that's already on there, it does pay to work quite quickly. But as I say, you can still go back and add some water to it later. So that just when that you add that, it bleeds itself and blends. Sometimes it's hard to get the timing right as to how much you want it to blend in with the bleeding itself through. But then what I would like to do is just take a wee bit of that colour out in these gaps. And that are the three coloured, so that's good. So I'll just set those aside for a little bit so that I can add some water to make create watermarks after. And that's not quite dry, but it shouldn't be too far away. And what I'm going to do is bring in this piece here. So I've got a white card base, and then I've got this layer, and I've got a piece that's slightly bigger, because what I'd like to do is trim it down once I've put some colour on. Let's use this piece here, pop it on here, and then for this I'm using boho blue. And because sometimes when you take the ink from here to here, you can end up with it doesn't blend straight away very well, but because it's going to be covered, that's a good place to start your blending. I like to take the ink from here and pop it into the lid, just so it doesn't have too much on it. Just take a little bit off, and then I'll just start in here. See how that's a bit squirrely, or it's not very smooth, but that will be behind those flowers, so it doesn't matter. Just get that colour on, and I just want it to be that it pokes out behind those flowers, so it might look quite intense in the middle, but you can see that it's not so intense further out. So just And it also, once it's sat on the paper for a little bit, I do find that it blends into it. It sort of soaks into the paper, so let's just see how that looks. I have gone for a darker look here, but that's okay. They're all original, aren't they? And every time you do some, they do tendency to be a little bit different. Just ease that out a bit. So now what I want to do is just trim it just slightly, because what I find too is when you go near the edge, it ends up creating a little bit of a dark colour on the edge. So I'm just going to trim that off. Just use this little trimmer. Just want to trim off just a couple of millimetres on each side. Whatever card size you're using, just want to trim it down just so it's a bit smaller than your card front. That one is quite a bit smaller. I might just trim it down a little bit more. Put a little mark on there, a little pencil mark. Just trim that edge off. So then you don't have any dark edges from the ink. That is going to sit on there. So I'll just put some dimensionals on there just to give that a bit of dimension. And I always like adding dimension because it creates a bit of shadow and adds another sort of element of interest. Take those off and put that nice and straight on there. And then these, they're dry now, so I'm just going to flick some water just to get some nice sort of watermark looks on them. So I could randomly flick them with the brush or just add little droplets of water. It'll just bleach out a little bit of colour. So add another little. You can see that on there, it's taken some colour out. So I'll set that aside again to dry. And while that's drying, I'm just going to die cut these little leaves because this is dry now. So as I say, it doesn't take too long to dry. So we want 3 of these leaves here and 2 of those. Sometimes I do find it can stick to it a little bit when it's a little has been watercoloured and maybe not totally dry. Just gently lift those off there. Get those out of the way. And then if you want to make sure it does cut through something a little like this, you can just go back again through the die cutting machine. But this is dyeing beautifully, so I don't feel the need to. lastly one more of these. So you can see there's a little bit more of this left, so I'll pop that back in my stash for use another day. Another option, if you wanted to create some little watermarks or some different things, you could add white pigment ink. It always adds another interest. Actually, I've forgotten to do that. I'll do that now. I had done some watermarks on here, so I'll just flick that on now. And I just did flick that. The hardest thing is you can't see until it starts working, but it does work quite quickly. You can see some sort of developing already. So I'll just set that aside to dry. So I've got my little leaves here. Just take all those extra bits out that haven't come out. So we've got 3 of those little leaves and 2 of the other. So there are lots of little, there are some other leaf dies in that set too, which are lovely. So while the other is drying, now's a good time just to do the just a note. So I've got a little bit of black cardstock and my embossing buddy again. There's some arc, and I've got the sentiment on here, so I'll trim this down. Just pop that. Oh, shouldn't need too much trimming, it's on a smallish bit of paper. And then I'm going to do this one in white. So I'll just heat set that, wait a moment. Then what I'll do is put it on that before that goes flying. I'll just trim this down. Don't really need to take, it did work out that it sat nicely on there, so that's good. Just had to trim the left and the right. So now it's a matter of popping it all together. So I'll bring this in, so you can see that's developing already, which is good. And these 3, oh, they haven't quite dried yet, so I might just, I'll just give them a little drying with the heat tool. So I won't be a moment. If you want to speed that process up, you can just dab a tissue on, because the water's already on there, so it will have had time to take the colour out. You can see hopefully where that's taken the colour out. So because I'm going to be popping in the leaves behind this, I just pop one dimensional in the middle of each of those flowers. What I'm going to do is pop one in the middle, so that about there, and then so the middle is here, I think about there, and then this one's going to just sit here, just slightly overlapping, and then this one here going that way a little bit. And then for the leaves, I want those, you can see they're sitting up because these are undimensional, so I wanted those sitting up. So what I do is just get, I've got all those out, and just get some little mini dimensionals, and just with some tweezers, it's probably the easiest thing, is just take off tops and then just pop that on there, so you can see I've set that on there, and then I'm just going to get that and tuck it in under here. Do that with all of them. Just find that, and because I haven't got dimensionals going right up to the edge of these, I've got room for them to sit under the flower. There, and then lastly these two. I'm going to sit them on the same one, adhere them on there, so that sort of got them offset slightly, and then just tuck that in here. That sort of makes it easy to get them in. And then I'm going to do a bow, just entwine here. So I want that to sit about here. Just pop a glue dot there, and I've got my piece of twine. So I'm just going to tie that in a bow. Didn't realise my nails match the card. Good luck, not good management. I tend to just pop them over one finger like that, and then just pull that down so I can make sure that they're the same length. And just pop that onto the glue dot. And even when it's on the glue dot, if you feel like you want to make it a bit smaller, you just need to, I just pop my finger on here and pull, and I'll just make that a bit shorter. Then I'm just going to trim those down a bit, because just be annoying when you're trying to get them in the envelope if they're too long. And then I want to pop my sentiment, so I'm just going to pop a dimensional on each side here, so that it will avoid the knot of the bow in the middle. And I line it up with the bottom of the card and just take it up, so that hope that I've got it reasonably straight. Then that's been a bit of a guide. Then I'm going to use a little rhinestone and pearls container, these gorgeous iridescent pearls. I think they look really pretty on any project because there's a little bit of sparkle, and I did get a little bit carried away. I've got 2, 4, 6, 7 on here, so you probably don't really need that much. I just like to offset them and create a little bit of a triangle, so I'll just go for that. So you could easily add more, but that's probably enough for that one. So there are my 2 cards. So probably was a little bit heavy-handed with the background on that, but still it's nice to have a nice vivid background. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing me create this card. Please pop over to my blog and you can take the Be Inspired Hop. We're all celebrating summer and doing summery cards this week. Thanks again. Bye for now.